So welcome to the MIT Global Innovators e-seminar series. Today we have Jon Hansen, Thiago Naves, and Amory Gonzalez from Quick Brazil. They are alumni from the MIT Bootcamp in Brazil. Sorry, not Brazil, Brisbane last year. And the reason why I'm saying Brazil is because we're going to have one in Rio de Janeiro in July in summer.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Thiago. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, to be here with my partners. All that we want to tell you today is about the importance of the team and how the team can really change an entire enterprise for the good. And so I will start telling you about the day we met on MIT Bootcamp in Brisbane. And you must know that at the MIT Bootcamp method for creating teams, it's incredible. And it's very energetic how in just a few hours, you need to get your partners for the job. And then you can imagine how this happened in the sense that in just a few hours, we created this team. And after that, we founded the company, and it's running in a very nice way. So the day we met was very important. I remember that, and the main points are about how you try to connect after talking to everybody. So we had like more than 100 people there at the MIT Bootcamp. How you talk to everybody, and at that point, you may check and see those ones that not only interact better with you, but how you can share an idea. And in our case, the idea was about how to help consumers to fight for their rights in developing countries. So how you can connect people from very different types of cultures by the same idea. And taking this into your reality, I mean, most of you will be from very different cultures, very different countries. And so the importance is that people may share the same message, may share the same idea in order to build a strong team. In our case, we had me from Brazil, Jon from the United States, Amory from Guatemala, Gaurav from India, and Jin that was in Korea on the first step of the MIT Bootcamp. So imagine all this difference in just like 1 or 2 hours. And so it was a marvelous day. And have this in mind that when you are founding your company, when you're doing your entrepreneurship, it's really important for you to see this date, the date that you met with your partners, and how you could acknowledge the same idea and the same message. I think that's the most important thing. How can people be really passionate about one idea, and how can they develop this? And that's my main report about the day we met. So it's all about the message. It's all about the very good ideas that we have to change the world. So now I'm gonna pass to my fellow Jon, and he will develop more with you.
Amory, if you could hit the next slide. In terms of what the groundwork that we laid there at the boot camp and what we've done since then, I think the good foundation that we laid during that week and we've maintained since is all about having a shared set of goals. As a team, to work together to be effective, we have to be excited about working in the same direction. And so I think there's a problem sometimes in companies when different people have what they want out of the company or what they want for outcomes and goals, and so they maybe sometimes will go in different directions or pull apart. And so when we were there at the boot camp thinking about what we were going to do, we started with a very broad goal, and that goal would allow us to come together and have a shared common goal. Amory, if you'd hit the next slide. The problem that we decided to work on was protecting the rights of consumers in developing countries. And that was purposely a very broad goal. And then we could work together as a team, narrowing from there. but we had to have a common groundwork to start from. And I think that was very important with us, because to have the same goal is to move in the same direction. And so starting from here, we could work together as a team and start narrowing down from this very broad statement to something that we all agreed on. But you have to start somewhere. And so for us, this was where we started. And I think in business everywhere, but especially in starting a new startup, starting some entrepreneurial activity, working from a common goal is very important for the team to stick together, to be unified, and to have one objective. Amory, why don't you tell the community here about how our business works? You're on mute, Amory, so go ahead and unmute.
Thank you, John.
Amory, there you go.
Yeah, can you hear me? So, well, basically what we do is, okay, just imagine the situation. We're a company that's actually looking for transforming how people claim for their consumer rights. And the thing is, if you're going to the airport and just suddenly find out your flight is canceled, you're probably not gonna be happy about it. And what we're offering is an easy way to actually solve the situation and claim for your rights, even when you cannot immediately fix the situation that is happening with the airline. You can actually get a compensation for this damage they're causing to you. And actually you have many options. You could actually self-claim your claim, or you can do nothing, and that's the path most of us do. And you can also hire an attorney to do the process, and on the claim on yourself. It's gonna take a long time, and it's gonna be really, really expensive to do. So we're trying to find a way to make it affordable, easy to use, and fast for users who got their consumer rights or their flights canceled to actually fix it right away. And what basically we do is you go into a website, you verify if your flight qualifies because it got canceled or something, and we're gonna give you immediately a payment after sending some documents for proving your flight was canceled, and signing some documents to us, giving us the right to make the claim on your name. And that's basically how it works. It's a really easy way of helping consumers to fight for their rights. And another thing I guess we should talk about is, as a team, we always get like problems in situations, and it's really often when you're working with a multicultural team in different time schedules, to get some disputes and to get some misunderstandings and differences in opinions. And well, it always happens. And you're probably gonna feel not that happy when these situations come along. And obviously the normal or the attitude most people take towards an uncomfortable situation, it's kind of waiting by itself to be fixed. But the truth is, in entrepreneurship, you need to fix things really fast, because it can make a real change how long you take these difficult conversations into delay. So, well, I guess I should tell you a personal history we had. Well, when we were actually defining the share equity and all these things in our company, we weren't getting to an agreement about it. And actually we had to do like two things. First of all, we agreed on what was valuable for all of us. And we tried to define the same value for a category. For example, time you're dedicating for this venture, or how much value are you giving, or what's the risk you're assuming into this company. So the first thing we did is, instead of focusing on the things we weren't agreeing, we tried to agree on some things that were universal for us. And when we reached a moment that when we couldn't get an agreement with this, we asked someone else to help us. And we made a call. So if you get a misunderstanding, or you really cannot fix it by yourself, you're trying to talk about it, you're having the hard conversations, but even after all, you're not being able to fix the situation, well, you can ask for help. And it actually helped us a lot, asking for help. It was really useful. It was really, really useful. And after a while, we went up with an agreement. Now we are happy. We're working all together. We're a really, really, I would say, united team. And that reaches to the second part, which is we have to make it fun. Like entrepreneurship, it's a really hard path, a really, really hard path. And you have to work hard. You have to be iterating the whole time. You have to be thinking about new ideas, new ways of solving things. You get into situations that require some capacities or competencies that you probably don't have. And well, you need to find a way to fix it. And the thing is, if it's already hard, don't make it boring and don't make it like a really hard path to make. Like make it fun, and that power is yours. And that's why Captain Planet is in there telling us that the power is yours. We always have to try to make it fun. And for example, as an example, us, all the time we start a meeting, we don't go directly into the meeting. Like this is the point, and we have to talk about this. Like we always take up time to make it human, you know, like how are you doing? How the kids, how's your wife? How's the weather? We always make fun about the weather because Jon is from Boston and he gets really, really cold sometimes. And we are from, I would say, tropical countries. So our winter gets like, I don't know, 10 degrees Celsius, and his winter gets under 15 degrees Celsius. So yeah, we always do that kind of things and make some jokes. And I guess that's the main thing, like you're already working hard. Don't make it an unbearable journey by not making it fun. And well, now guys, I guess it's your turn, Jon, to talk about diversity.
Well, thank you very much, Amory. This was an amazing presentation, and I think that we have some very important things to talk about the cultural diversity of our company, and we can think first on how we deal because the cultural differences are related with a lot of subjects. I think the first one is much related with our demographics. So we come from different countries and we're working on different cities in different time zones. And by all of this, we needed to settle a very nice way in order to work remotely. So on the same hand, we can have efficiency, which is very important. But on the other hand, we have to take care of each other. So we are not disturbing our partners when, let's say, it's too late in a country and it's not in another, when it's too early in one and it's not in another. And you might think that this is easy to handle, but it's not. It's quite hard because you have to always think on these details. So it's not like being on the same desk with some person and just like grab a call or something. You have to like really think about everything you're doing. So in order to accomplish the goal, so have the efficiency, and on the other hand, make it happen as if the person was really close to your desk. But that is only the main point. Cultural differences are also related with the way you understand your partner, the way you see how diverse is the word. So it's different the way people think. And I have a good example here on my side with Jon, because Jon is the kind of person that I think we probably will never meet here in Brazil. So things here in Brazil that would take like a month to be constructed or to be solved, he does this in like one day. So that's kind of interesting because then you think about how are the difference. And I mean, this is all about commitment. This is all about having a very nice relation. And so for the Brazilian team, because we have many people who work here for Quick Brazil, to have someone like this and doing this. So Jon is teaching us the way many things can be done and can be done in much better sense. And I know that from his side, of course, he's learning a lot from us as well. So learning different perspectives, maybe learning how to deal with people in the way that Brazilian people will do in a very nice way. We have Amory, who is always like a guy who's trying to make the work be fun, which is something that we still miss here in Brazil. So he's doing everything all the time to make the work be fun. And sometimes you forget that you are like working because you're having fun with that. And you imagine this with all the challenges of a startup, the challenges that Brazil gives to us in terms of taxes, in terms of the way people will access the website, which is completely different from the US, completely different from Guatemala, completely different from Japan, or whatever it takes. When people like to access the platform, the way they like to share information. And so this is all available because that's an exercise of understanding people. Not only us, in terms of how we deal with each one, but also how we deal with our clients that are spread all around. So we are an international company, and we must learn how to deal with ourselves in a good sense, and how to deal with our clients that are spread all around Brazil. There is a continental country, and inside Brazil, there is also lots of different perspectives of understanding things. So for me, especially, this was the most interesting challenge I ever had in my life. There was a challenge to understand better people. And I know that from now on, since let's say April of last year, I feel like much better to understand people and to make sure that when I'm doing a work, I'm not doing it only for myself. I'm doing in a way that everybody in the world can understand that and can understand really nice. So in terms of cultural differences, I think these are the main points. And now, Jon?
Well, and there's some structures that we put in place too to help because there are differences in expectations and in culture, and so some of the things that we did were well, there's technology tools that we use. Of course, there's Slack, and we have regular video calls. We have a scheduled daily call, and I think that's very helpful. It doesn't have to be very long since we're doing it every day, but it allows us to just check in, and it allows us to really check our assumptions and to find out what the other team members are doing and how things are progressing. And so this is really helpful. And I think having structures like that, having technology tools, Zoom, Slack, whatever else, having a scheduled video call, those are helpful in overcoming some of those time barriers and cultural barriers as well. The other thing I should talk about is the diversity of skill that happens within the team here. You know, if I formed a startup, and my background is electrical engineering, if I formed a startup with 2 or 3 other electrical engineers, we would be really good at our electrical engineering, but we would probably not be very good at anything else. And that's one of the other real powers of having a team with a diverse skill set. So Thiago has the legal background. Amory is very good at dealing with customers and setting up a CRM and an automation system. And my skill set has to do with technology and building websites and things. And so what we have built together in Quick Brazil is not anything that any of us could have built on our own, or it's not anything that a team of 3 of Thiagos or a team of 3 Jons or a team of 3 Amorys could have built on their own either. The skill set, the diversity of skill set is really, really powerful, especially in a new startup. And there's a temptation, I think, with, we as people, we gravitate toward being around people that are like us, similar to us in their background and in their viewpoint. And the danger of that is that we won't learn anything from the people we're around. But if we're around people with a different set of technological skills, a different background, a different skill set, we can complement each other's skills. Now, see, I look at this screen here and I see 3 men, and that can be a weakness because half of our customers should be women. And so actually in our team, we have a couple women who are helping out too. And I think that brings a perspective that's very beneficial. They have had suggestions that have been very helpful. In the way it worked out in the boot camp, finding people with a shared set of goals happened to put 3 men together. But I think it's important to look at the team and say, hey, we need a diverse perspective so that we can have be able to address our entire customer base and understand them and be able to help them. So that's a real the strength of the diversity of skill. And we found this to be very helpful during the boot camp and since then when we do brainstorming, because trying to figure out how to structure a business model, what markets to go after, how to structure our marketing, things like that. By bringing together in a brainstorm people with different skill sets, allows the brainstorming to be more productive. And I can't express the importance of that enough. I think during our experience in forming the company, really taking the time to brainstorm and consider alternatives at the beginning is super important, because if you wait till you've got a startup half built before you realize that you should have considered a different way of going about it, then a lot of what you may have built already, you may have to go back and reconstruct. But if we can take the time as a team and not be in a hurry and brainstorm, then we can really get it right the first time. And I think, Thiago, I think you were making a comment about this the other day, that when we were doing our brainstorming, that we'd go and we'd do some thinking and say, okay, now let's go build it. And Amory would say, wait, let's think this through and make sure we've got this all figured out. I think you said that.
Yeah, it was like brainstorming was amazing at that point, to have such different skills. And so it's totally different when you have this kind of profiles, this kind of backgrounds, because you were like very excited to do things, and we are often like that. And then there is one person who has this skill. This is Amory. So every time, okay, but let's think better about this. And it's pretty exciting about a way to work and to learn.
Yeah, and that's where that difference in personalities, difference in priorities can be really powerful. Another thing I should mention also in building a startup and using the strengths of the team is something that I've learned called fail fast, fail cheap. So if Microsoft wants to spend a couple $1 billion and buy Nokia and then let the business flounder for a couple of years while it tries to figure it out and then sell it off at a big loss, Microsoft can afford to do things like that. But as a team, as a small team of entrepreneurs, we don't have the time and resources to do something like that. So for failure in a startup, I would say, is inevitable. It's inevitable that you're going to try something and it's not going to work, and you're going to try something else and not going to work. And so what you want to do is iterate as fast as possible through those failures to get to the successes, since we don't have a lot of time. And so the power of the team and the diversity of skills allows us to iterate through failures faster on our way to success. So just about in every aspect, the power of the team comes through. Before I had gone to the boot camp, I had tried to launch a venture on my own, and I'm here to tell you it's difficult as a single founder, trying to do everything myself and trying to know everything that needs to be known inside a startup is very, very difficult. And in that did not end up working out. And my experience in a strong team with a diverse skill set since then has been a night and day difference. So the power of team can't be overemphasized. Amory, I think that was. Did you go? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, actually, that's pretty much what we had to share with everybody. I don't know if anyone wants to share anything else, but those are the learnings. I would just add that it's been as long as you're willing to learn and to listen to the rest of the team, you're always growing as a team, and that's the main thing. I guess the subject or the name of this talk, like Team Above Else, is really important, because every time we reach it, like a breaking point, let's call it like that, we always stopped and realized that the team was more important than each one's individual interests. And sometimes you obviously prefer something else but when you get it into a perspective from the team, you realize that actually what you want is not that important, and for the team is more important to value that a different agreement than the one you have reached by yourself. So I guess that's a really good skill we have grew and developed through this journey, and well, I just wanted to add that thing.
Okay, should we open up for questions then, Andrew?
Yep. So we're opening up for questions. So I think the first one was from Vivek in regards to how do you work with team members who have contrasting and opposing views on the work that you're creating, and how much do you tolerate them? It kind of reminds me of the time on the first day of the bootcamp, I believe, where you guys have to set up the team charter. I'm curious if you can share a little bit about your experience in that process and how that helped the build this strong foundation to, you know, towards the collaboration opportunities here.
Yeah, the charter. I had it's been a while since I thought about the charter, but it was really part of our formation. And I remember we had some good rules. It was, you know, listen before you speak, and not to interrupt each other. Do you guys remember what the other rules were?
The other one was, learning is more important. You remember we agreed that we're here for learning, not for imposing our point of view. Yeah. And I think, you know, as a team, what was the question was, how do we handle differing viewpoints? Mm-hmm. It's inevitable that we have different viewpoints, and the conflicts will come up. And you know, Amory touched on that a little bit. It's important to have regular discussions, and so that we don't misunderstand each other, because I think that's the biggest thing that can lead to conflict. It's just a straight up misunderstanding. And so heading that off early by having good communication is really important. And then if, like Amory said, if we come to an impasse where we can't decide, or we have some sort of conflict, sometimes it's good to just reach out to other mentors, coaches that we've had in the past that have had good advice, and see if they can help out any.
Great. And also a follow-up question to that is, how did you meet each other? Was this at the boot camp from Michael? And then how big is your team size? Can you share more about that?
So yeah, I remember that most in the boot camp, I remember talking to Amory, and we were like sharing this idea of how to make lives of consumers better in developing countries. And then on the other day, which was actually the first day of the bootcamp, I remember talking to Jon, and so I think that I passed him this message, and he felt very comfortable about that. So as you try to talk to people there in the bootcamp and try to share your message, some of them will immediately identify with that, and so it's also because we have not the same ages, but we're closer, and culturally, even if we are from very different countries, we have some things that are pretty common to each other. So it's a combination of different matters altogether.
Yeah, I would probably add that we share some values as a team. Like, for example, for us, it's really important to actually deliver what you say. Jon always uses a phrase, please, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but it's something like under promise and over deliver. Is it like that? So, well, this is like a small example of how we share some values, some principles, some way of acting. So even if our cultures are different, even if we don't match in some things, on the core important things like how we work, what we're looking for, and how this is important to all of us, well, we match. And that's the core of our union and our business and what we're doing right now.
Great. And one more follow-up question from Sebastian. has the team stayed together since the beginning, or have you had people leave the team? And if yes, how did you handle it?
Yes, we did have, Gaurav was a member of the team, and he was in a position where he wasn't really able to contribute. He was pursuing his PhD, and so we mutually made the decision that it would be better if Quick Brazil and he go in different directions. And then since then, we've brought on, so that was the only departure. And then since then, we've brought on other talent, not in the founding, not as principals, but in helping out in the day-to-day activities.
Yeah, we also had Kim at the beginning, but well, he didn't match that much in the team. I guess you remember him. Yeah. Like we were agreeing on the values and the rules we were going to work with, and you know, the first day he was already just not respecting his agreements, and there was a moment he said, "Okay, guys, I don't match with you, so I'm gonna change the team," and he switched the team by himself. But after that, well, Jon just said it.
Some people have said, you know, hire slow, fire fast. Curious if your team agrees with that notion. How do you think the alignment is key in terms of the amount of acceleration that you have achieved in the last year? Can you share a little bit more?
Yeah, I guess, you know, not having had to, well, not having been in a position to where it was really necessary to fire somebody, I'm not sure if we can really comment too much on that. I think I do agree hiring slow. I definitely agree with that part. Taking the time to making sure that somebody is a good fit. Firing fast, I think it's a culture thing, and I think the culture that we would be trying to encourage here is not one that would fire fast. That would, if somebody was not performing well, to encourage that person to do what's necessary to bring their performance up to speed and make sure that it was clear what the expectations are. I think sometimes firing is a result of not having a clearly outlined expectations. But like I said, I don't know if we can comment too much on that, not really having been in that position yet.
Yeah. It's still on an early stage for us.
Right. I guess, you know, how I saw that more specifically was the, you know, the initial fit with the people who are no longer on the team when you guys had the team formation at the boot camp. Did they leave? Did you guys ask them to leave, or how did that work out?
Actually, we kind of made it evident for them that, well, things weren't matching that good. So I guess they left because they realized that they weren't fitting the culture and the team we're creating. I don't know, you want to add something, Jon or Thiago?
Yeah, I think in that case, that decision, it was too long, and you know and that's on me as my position in the CEO is that I did let that go too long before addressing it straight on and basically saying we need to have a conversation because we're not headed in the same direction. And I do, in retrospect, wish that I had that conversation sooner. I wouldn't. If I'd had the conversation sooner, it would not have been firing fast. It still would have been in a slower time. But I think maybe I learned a little bit from that.
Great. And the other part really was, what are the topics, Alexander is asking, what are the topics that generally cause more divergence of opinions on your team? And I know you're 3 people, but how do you deal with, you know, do you have a tiebreaker of any sort? How does that work?
Oh, that's a hard question.
I'll jump in here. I guess we're sort of in silos because like I talked about earlier, you know, we have our areas of expertise. And so because we're sort of each the master of our own domain, the conflict doesn't usually manifest itself. So Thiago is in charge of legal, and I wouldn't really question his ability or his decisions, I should say, in a legal context, because I'm not in a position to, and Amory's not either. At the same time, on the website, you know, I have the technology background, and if I say, you know, this is the path that we need to go in that domain, they pretty much take me at my word. And the same thing with Amory and his expertise. And so I think conflicts would come more in strategic directions of where the company's going and what markets we want to pursue and how we want to address growth and things like that. But I think the biggest thing to prevent conflict there is just having regular open communication and being really honest with each other too, and you know, not beating around the bush, but just being direct but you know, direct and polite, really.
Yeah, sure.
I would also add that all the time we have new ideas, we kind of put them, like you have an idea and you understand this is just an initial idea. And we open it for the rest to have opinions. And sometimes, I don't know, for example, when we're talking about the automation or the CRM, well, everybody gave their opinion and we were all open to even internet and everybody was listening, and then we reached an agreement and we moved forward with that. And also Thiago, for example, he has a lot of expertise in legal things and legal matters, but when he has something that he thinks is important, he's just not saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. He says, okay, guys, based on this knowledge, based on this position, I suggest we can make this decision. What do you think about it? And I guess that communication, that it's open, that it's everybody willing to listen to the others and everybody willing to understand each other, well, it makes it easier for us to actually reach agreements really fast and good agreements. And we all made part of the decision. So if things don't work out, we blame the team. We don't blame the person. You know? That's really important.
Great. Now you can't talk about teamwork without talking about leadership. Yes, you have a CEO, but clearly as a startup, you're all leaders in your areas of expertise. Can you share your reflections on the traits and practices and attitudes that strengthen the team and enhance each other or complement each other in your startup?
I've learned that little subtle eye raise of Amory says, that one's for you. Did you want to?
No, please, you can.
Well, you know, like I said, I think, you know, I keep coming back to honest, regular communication, and being able to have respect for one another and respect for each other's ideas, and having a policy of listening first and really hearing someone out before speaking.
Yeah. Also, I like to say that, as Jon said, so we are with different expertises, and it's a good example when you see someone taking the leadership into his own area, his own priority. It's a good example for the others. So when someone takes the leadership and do some very nice work, it's inspiring for the others, and the others will want to develop this better. So it's a virtue. It's a virtue for, and I think all of us have this leadership. So it's not a conflict. It's not a conflict for us. It's complementary and something that's really an example for each other, and not only for us but for the other person of Quick Brazil. So when we take the leadership and do something, and you know that the person has a good intention, I think this is a good example for everybody. So, and talking at the same time of the differences and everything. So when you see this leadership going of culture, it's really amazing to see the results over the entire team.
I would only add that we all talked and agreed and in some core values and core way of doing things since the beginning. And I guess it became part of our culture after a while that we're no longer talking about those things, but we have it so into our DNA right now. And we're doing it, for example, this thing of always having honest communication constantly. And well, if you made a mistake, apologizing, or always knowing that the rest of the team relies on you. So you have to do your best for not disappointing them. I guess those principal things that we agreed in the beginning and they keep coming up in our daily routines and habits, I guess that's really important. And I would also say that this, based on this leadership capacities, most people think like, okay, I'm not a leader sometimes, but well, you're always leading, because actually leadership is about influencing others. And we let each other be influenced by the others. For example, I don't know, a really good example for me was when Jon asked me if I could give him a list of Latino music, because he wanted to understand the culture better. And he has a list for that. And well, he's learning from us, and we're also learning from him, like many things. So I guess that exchange or that trade-off of skills of being more human than machines is always really good for influencing each other and becoming a shared leadership, not a specific leadership.
If anybody needs a list of Latino music, let me know. I can hook you up with a good list.
And so, Jon, you're in Brazil today, but you're usually not in Brazil. Some of the questions have been about, how often do you meet in the same location? Is that important, and if so, why?
Yeah, I think it is an ideal to work toward, and of course, with the team spread out from the United States to Guatemala to Brazil, it's a financial burden to put everybody in the same physical location. And as an early startup, this is the first time it's occurred, and you have financial considerations. We do pretty well in using Zoom in communicating with each other and seeing each other, but there is no replacement for face-to-face. And also for me, I felt like it was really valuable, because there's a big cultural difference between the United States and Brazil. And so for me to be able to come here and see the airports firsthand, see the people firsthand, how they live their lives, how they get around, the transportation, the food, everything. I think there's a real value in that too, but also in the face-to-face. So I hope we can do it regularly and as often as possible. Any startup, startups where everybody is in the same location have a bit of an advantage in that way. But it's possible to be done in different geographic locations too.
Yeah, so to follow up on that question, can you also, again, share the specific tools that you have used? Because there are other people out there who have, team members working remotely. If you can share those, that would be awesome.
Well, we use a lot of them. WhatsApp, obviously, is a really useful tool, and it's free. Well, we always prioritize free tools. We use WhatsApp for communication, like informal communication. We use Slack for having a tracking of our communication and channels, everything. We used to make the calls using Hangouts. Then Hangouts started failing, so we switched to Skype. Then Skype wasn't that good as well, so we changed to Zoom, and Zoom has been a really useful tool. We also use like a CRM. We all have access to it, and I don't know, if I have to work on a workflow, then I do it. If Jon has to do a link from the website to the CRM, it works as well. And if Thiago has to do a follow-up on the claims, well, he does it through the CRM. So, well, we have a centralized point of reference for everybody knowing what's the status of the business. We also have we have a Google Doc for our financial spreadsheet. We have all financial information in there. We still need to improve that, but well, so far it's free and it's useful. What else? What else do we use?
The CRM that we use is called Zoho, and it starts free, but then we've added enough features that they made us pay, so that's very sad.
Yeah. Well, we started free as well.
Mm-hmm.
And do we use something else?
I think that's most of it. Yeah. On the for communication tools, we also use free tools to run the website. Open source Linux and Apache and things like that. So, thank goodness for free software.
And I guess a follow-up question to that follow-up question was, how do you think about the strategy that you came about with Quick Brazil? For example, how did Jon become the CEO? Why didn't Thiago become the CEO or Amory, as an example? Like, how did you decide as a team in terms of defining the strategic direction and company goals going forward?
Well, I would say we have changed along the way. That's the cool part, and we have always been open to that. And for example, in the bootcamp at the beginning, I was the CEO. I don't know if you remember the pitch night, but it was me. Then Thiago was the CEO, and then now it's Jon, and I think he's gonna remain the CEO for the next couple of years. And how we chose it, but basically it was based on who was coordinating everybody's work. So during the bootcamp, I guess I was doing the leadership in there. Then when we started creating the company in Brazil, we needed Thiago to be the leader because he had the contacts. He was in Brazil. He was making all the legal arrangements for creating the company there. And then, well, Jon started like looking for accountability, to having a plan, to creating the workflow processes, the diagrams. And suddenly, well, we needed him to be the CEO. So I guess it's a situational thing. And we all agree that he's the coordinator and the leader now. He distributes the work. He talks to all of us. He fixes problems. So I always say that. I don't know if you want to add something else, guys.
Yeah, and even, I'm the CEO, but I know that it's important not to be too attached to that. If I think it's in the founders' dilemmas, you read that CEOs are typically not the same set of skills for starting a startup as it is for running a mature company. And so any founder, CEO, needs to be prepared that down the line they may need to move aside for somebody who's better qualified. And so I think that's something that I'm certain that there's people out there that would be better qualified. And when we find one and the time is right, we'll put that person in charge.
And it's also worth noting at the bootcamp, you get to be CEO for a day. And I'm curious to hear from each of you what that experience was like for you.
For me, it was a marvelous experience because I had to deal with all those different problems, and I think that the idea was kind of mature. But I mean, we had lots of changes to give, and of course, in the bootcamp, you are far from sleep, so you're far from being in a position that you rest, and so you have to take the decisions let's say an extreme condition, and that's how you are very encouraged to do that. And the team was every time someone was a CEO, the others were supporting and making sure that we could give our best. So it was very encouraging to be the CEO in the bootcamp.
And another question is, everybody at the bootcamp wanted to do their own project, start their own startup. How did you guys decide that you wanted to work in this particular project and solve this particular problem and go for this opportunity now called Quick Brazil?
Well, I think we realized that I mean, obviously the numbers don't work out. Everybody can't do their own pitch, you know, because you know, everybody comes with their own idea, but you gotta work together on a team. And so I think we all kind of realized that we needed to be on the same page. And this harkens back to what I was talking about in finding a common problem that we all agree on. And I think that's what helped us really circumvent having disputes over my idea or your idea, by saying, what common point can we start from, and then work toward something that is all of our idea. Because when it came down to it, in the end, what we came up with was as much any one person's as another, because we had all really contributed equally.
Yeah.
And would you have any advice for people, for candidates that are applying to the bootcamp, looking and hoping to bring in their idea? What would you say to that?
Well, first of all, I would say detach from your idea. Like, you're going there to live an amazing learning experience. And if you're trying to impose on actually perfectionate your own idea, well, you're actually losing your time and your money. You're there for the learning experience. You're there for the meeting new people, from learning new skills, for, I don't know, following examples of other people doing different things. So if you're getting there with the pride of an attachment for an idea, you're really wasting your money. So my advice would be detach from any idea, any concept, everything. Just go down with a white page and be open to start writing it from the beginning.
And the follow-up question to that too is really, now that you formed the startup and launched it out of bootcamp, how do you assign ownership? You guys talked a little bit about equity stakes earlier. Do you measure sweat equity? Of course, it's a startup. That's a lot of work to be done. What do you do? And how does that count towards ownership?
Yeah, Amory touched on that a little bit. We went through kind of methodically and said, we need to agree on the criteria. Like, each of us need to forget what percentage we think we ought to have. Okay, and we need to agree on what's the criteria that's important for the startup. So some of that is the time that's dedicated to it. Some of it is the risk that goes into it. Some of it is what is being given up financially. So we took anything, we brainstormed anything that could be part of that equity discussion. We put down on a spreadsheet, and then we went through and we assigned, we agreed on, what values do we think each of these have. And then from there, we went through and said, okay, what is each of us contributing on each of these indexes? And from there, it's a matter of calculation. And so, like, I think the way we worked through it was, we weren't going to know what the percentage was until we finished finished the Excel table and put the last cell in and see what it turned out to be. And I mean, agreeing on the important thing, I think, was agreeing ahead of time how we're going to do it, what will the criteria be, and then follow through in that procedure. Emery, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that we were faithful to what we agreed in the beginning. Like, we said, okay, let's forget about the percentages. Let's agree on the criteria, and whatever comes out from this exercise is gonna be the share. And well, I guess, obviously you have some sensations during that process. You charge it with emotional things, but when you let data be the one that talks and not your emotions, you make things easier. So I would say, well, if you want to make a startup, make it data driven. Yeah, it's always better to be based on data than emotions.
So one more question here. Do you have any advice for, new founders who are looking for potential partners? Where do you look for them? Did you come into the bootcamp to look for co-founders?
For me, I definitely did. I said, you know what, I had gone through an exercise of trying to find something on my own, and I looked at it and I said, you know what, having a large group of people who have already been vetted and are passionate enough about entrepreneurship to go through the MOOCs, to most of them, pay the tuition and make a trip to Australia. Like, those are the people that I want to bump shoulders with and talk to and see if I can find a co-founder. So I have no better recommendation on where to find a co-founder than the bootcamp, because that's what I did.
Yeah, really. It's really interesting to go there and think about it. Be thinking about this even before you go. Totally, you're gonna find lots of interesting people there who might be fit as your co-founders.
I would only add that you have to look for someone that matches your values. And I would say, I don't know how you call it, but this chemistry thing, that you have this feeling, this intuitive thing with the others. I don't know, when I met Thiago and I met Jon, we were talking for a lot of time. Like, we were eating together. We weren't making teams at that moment. We were eating together, making jokes together, trying to know each other better. And when we had to make a team, it was like, I want to be in your team because I like you as a person. So I guess that's important as well.
So the bootcamp is an exercise in extreme ownership. Do you agree with that term? And extreme ownership in all fronts. And if you do, you agree? Do you disagree, and why?
You have to be extremely committed and take responsibility, and the outcome, what you're going to get out is going to be completely and directly related to what you put in. So
I think that I agree with what Jon said, and complement that as far as you are open to learn and to really see a person who shares your values and might be able to change your business into a better business, bootcamp is totally worth it. So I agree with what Jon said in this term.
We're almost out of time, but we have one final surprise for all you, who have stayed on faithfully to the end.